3 weeks after the battle, the Galactic Council held an emergency session on their central station. Representatives from every member species gathered to discuss what had happened at Verdara 9. The chamber was packed, and every eye turned toward the human delegation when they entered. Doyen led the group, walking with the confidence of someone who had nothing to apologize for. Behind him came Young-Su, Taemin, and several others from the Sentinel Warden's crew. They took their seats in the human section, which had previously been small and insignificant. Now it felt like the most important place in the room. The council leader, an ancient being from the Vorath species, spoke first. The council recognizes the human delegation. You have been called here to answer for your actions. You engaged in combat without council approval. You risked war with an enemy we barely understand. What do you have to say? Doyen stood. We defended ourselves against an unprovoked attack. The Kreth came to destroy us. We had every right to fight back. You should have surrendered the Valtorian ship, a Thalric's representative argued. One ship is not worth risking the entire galaxy. That ship was left for humanity, Young-Su said, standing beside Doyen. We will not surrender our inheritance because you're afraid. The chamber erupted into arguing. Some species agreed with the humans. Others demanded the Sentinel Warden be taken by force and destroyed to prevent further Kreth attention. The debate went on for hours. Finally, the council leader raised a hand for silence. The reality is simple. The Kreth now know that humanity exists. They know you possess Valtorian technology. Whether we like it or not, this changes everything. The question is what happens next. The Kreth will come back, Taemin said, speaking up for the first time. The AI told us this was just a scout fleet. The real attack will be bigger. Which is why we need to prepare, Doyen added. And why we need to find the other ships the Valtorians left behind. The chamber went silent. Everyone stared at the human delegation. There are more ships? The council leader asked slowly. 11 more, according to Sentinel Warden, Young-Su confirmed. Hidden across the galaxy, waiting for humans to find them. Each one designed to bond with human crews. The Valtorians didn't just leave us one weapon. They left us a fleet. The implications of this hit everyone at once. 12 Valtorian warships, each as powerful as the one that destroyed 6 Kreth cruisers, all of them keyed to respond only to humans. This is unacceptable, a representative said. One species cannot have such power. We didn't ask for this, Doyen replied. The Valtorians chose us, but we're not stupid. We know we can't face the Kreth alone. We'll need allies. We'll need every species working together. Why should we trust humans with this power? Another representative demanded. Young-Su smiled grimly. Because 3 weeks ago, when everyone else ran, we stayed and fought. Because when the Kreth came to kill us all, we were the ones who stood in their way. That's why you should trust us. The debate continued, but slowly the tide turned. More representatives began supporting the human position. The battle at Verdara 9 had changed perceptions. Humanity was no longer the newest, weakest species in the council. They were the ones with the weapons and the will to use them. By the end of the session, a compromise was reached. Humanity would be given authority to search for the remaining Valtorian ships and crew them. But they would coordinate with the council and share tactical information about the Kreth. A joint defense force would be established, with human ships at its core. After the session, Taemin walked through the station with Jiwoo. They found a viewing port that looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there were 11 more ships waiting to be found. Somewhere out there, the Kreth Dominion was preparing its response. Are you scared? Jiwoo asked. Terrified, Taemin admitted. We just became the galaxy's frontline defense against an enemy that's been winning for 10,000 years. What if we can't do it? What if the Valtorians were wrong about us? They weren't wrong, Jiwoo said. We proved that in the battle. When it mattered, when everything was on the line, we didn't give up. That's what makes us human. Back on Verdara 9, preparations were already underway. The Sentinel Warden was being fully crewed now, with volunteers from Earth and the colonies. Proper training programs were starting. Engineers were studying the ship's systems to understand them better. Minji had made progress decoding the Valtorian archives. She found references to where some of the other ships were hidden. Search teams were being organized to find them. It would take time, maybe years, but humanity was committed to this path now. Yoonji worked in the engineering bay, teaching new crew members about the systems. She had learned more about the resonance effect, about how the ship responded to human will and determination. It was still partly mysterious, but they were starting to understand it. The more united the crew, the more determined they were, the stronger the ship became. It was like the ship fed on their courage. Hyejin trained security teams in the ship's corridors. They needed Marines, people who could board enemy ships or defend against boarding actions. It was strange, preparing for a type of warfare that most of the galaxy thought was obsolete. But the Kreth fought in ways that broke normal rules. Humanity would need to be ready for anything. Kyung-min led the pilot training program. She had a dozen students now, all learning to fly this massive vessel. She pushed them hard, teaching them to think creatively, to make choices that defied logic when necessary. The Kreth could calculate perfect responses to logical actions, but they couldn't predict chaos, couldn't adapt to pure determination. Young-soo was promoted to fleet commander charged with preparing humanity's defense. He worked with council military leaders, sharing everything they had learned about fighting the Kreth. He also planned strategies for when the enemy returned in force. Because they would return, that was certain. One evening, the original crew gathered in Sentinel Warden's command center. Doyen had brought drinks, and they toasted to their unlikely victory and their fallen expectations of a quiet research mission. "I came here to dig up old ruins," Taman said with a laugh. "I ended up finding the future instead." "The Valtorians left us quite a gift," Doyen agreed. "And quite a burden." "It's worth it, though," Hyejin said. "For the first time, the galaxy has hope against the Kreth. That's because of us. Because we were too stubborn to die when we were supposed to." Sentinel Warden's voice joined the conversation. "I have observed humanity now for several weeks. I have fought beside you. The Valtorians chose well. You are everything they believed you would be." "What exactly did they believe?" Shiwu asked. "They believed that when the universe says stop, you ask why and keep moving forward. They believed that you would rather die fighting than live in surrender. They believed that alone among all species, you possess the one weapon no empire can defeat, hope that refuses to die." Taman looked around at his friends, at the crew members working throughout the ship, at the stars beyond. The Valtorians had been dead for 8 centuries, but their faith in humanity lived on. They had reached across time itself to give humans the tools they would need to survive. Now it was up to humanity to prove worthy of that faith. The Kreth would come again, probably soon, and in much greater numbers. Other species would watch to see if humans could really stand against an empire that had ruled through fear for 10 millennia. But Taman wasn't worried. He had seen what humans could do when pushed to their limits. He had seen scientists become warriors, researchers become heroes. He had seen people refuse to surrender even when every logical calculation said they should. That was the real gift the Valtorians left behind. Not just the ships, but the reminder of what made humanity special. The stubborn, irrational, beautiful refusal to give up. The determination to keep fighting even when the odds were impossible. The galaxy needed that now. The darkness was coming, an empire of cold logic and merciless efficiency. But standing against it was humanity, armed with ancient weapons and their own unbreakable will. "To the Valtorians," Young-soo said, raising his glass, "for believing in us before we even knew we needed to believe in ourselves." They all drank to that. Outside, the Sentinel Warden floated in orbit, no longer a dead relic, but a living ship with a living crew. Its blue lights glowed bright in the darkness of space. Other lights appeared in the distance as council ships began arriving, ready to coordinate the defense of the galaxy. The jungle ship had awakened. Humanity had inherited the stars, and the real journey was just beginning. Sentinel Warden's AI spoke one final time, its voice carrying throughout the ship. "Crew of the Sentinel Warden, we have much work ahead. The Kreth will test us again and again, but I have seen what humans are capable of. I have felt your resonance. Together, we will show this galaxy what it means to never surrender. The Valtorians gave you ships, but you will give the galaxy something far more valuable. You will give them hope." In the command center, Taman smiled. The Valtorians had been right. Humanity was exactly what the galaxy needed, not because they were the strongest or the smartest, but because they never knew when to quit. And sometimes that was enough. Sometimes stubborn hope could change the universe. The first shot from the Kreth ships tore through space like a wound in reality itself. The weapon was something beyond anything Taman had seen before. It looked like concentrated darkness bending light around it as it traveled. "Brace for impact," Young-soo shouted. The blast hit Sentinel Warden's shields and the entire ship shuddered. Alarms blared. Displays flickered. But the shields held. Shields at 87%, Yunji reported from engineering. That was just one shot from one ship. Evasive maneuvers, Youngsu ordered. Kyungmin, get us moving. Kyungmin sat at the pilot station, her hands dancing across controls she had only learned days ago. She had been a fighter pilot before joining the expedition, one of the best. But piloting a ship this size was completely different. The Sentinel Warden responded to her commands, turning with impossible grace for something so large. 2 more dark energy blasts missed them by meters. The vacuum of space rippled where the shots passed. Return fire, Youngsu commanded. All forward weapons. Soman was at the weapons station, her face pale but focused. She had been a tactical officer on a colony defense ship, but that experience seemed tiny compared to this. She pressed the firing controls and Sentinel Warden unleashed its first attack. Beams of golden energy lanced out from the ship, brighter than stars. They crossed the distance to the nearest Kreth cruiser in an instant. The cruiser's shields flared, trying to absorb the impact, but the Valtorian weapons were designed specifically to break through Kreth defenses. The beams punched through and carved deep gouges into the enemy hull. The Kreth ship reeled, venting atmosphere and debris, but it didn't die. It returned fire immediately along with its 5 companions. Space erupted into chaos. The Sentinel Warden twisted and turned, trying to avoid the barrage. Kyungmin pushed the ship to its limits, using maneuvers that should have been impossible for something this size. But some shots still hit. The shields took punishment, dropping to 70%, then 60%. We can't keep taking hits like this, Heejin said from her station. She was monitoring shield strength and damage reports. We need to take some of them out. I'm trying, Somin said through gritted teeth. She fired again and again, her shots finding their targets, but the Kreth shields were strong. Their armor is regenerating. Every hit I land, they repair within seconds. Taemin watched the tactical display, trying to find patterns in how the Kreth moved. They fought with perfect coordination, their movements calculated and efficient. They were spreading out, trying to surround Sentinel Warden and hit it from all sides. They fight like machines, Jiwoo observed from her station. Perfect logic, perfect efficiency. That's because they basically are machines, Minji said. She had been studying the Kreth from Sentinel Warden's database. They replaced most of their biological parts with technology thousands of years ago. They calculate every move, every shot. They don't make mistakes. Another barrage hit them. Shields dropped to 50%. An explosion rocked the ship as one blast got through and damaged a secondary system. We're not going to win by trading shots, Youngsu said, his knuckles white as he gripped his console. We need to change tactics. Sentinel Warden, do you have any suggestions? The Kreth fight with pure logic, the AI responded. They calculate odds, predict movements, plan for every possibility. But their weakness is that they cannot comprehend illogical actions. They cannot predict choices that defy their calculations. So we need to do something crazy, Kyungmin said with a wild grin. Something they won't expect. Like what? Doyeon asked. Like charging straight at them, Kyungmin replied. They think we'll keep trying to evade and wear them down. What if we don't? Youngsu thought for a moment, then nodded. Do it. Full power to engines and forward shields. We're going right through them. Kyungmin laughed and pushed the controls forward. The Sentinel Warden stopped its evasive maneuvers and suddenly accelerated directly at the Kreth formation. The enemy ships hesitated just for a moment. Their calculations hadn't predicted this. Prey wasn't supposed to charge predators. That moment of hesitation was enough. Sentinel Warden roared through their formation, its forward shields ablaze with golden energy. It smashed into the damaged Kreth cruiser, and the shields carved through the enemy ship like a blade through paper. The cruiser exploded, its reactor going critical, 1 down. But now they were in the middle of the Kreth formation, surrounded on all sides. The enemy ships recovered from their surprise and turned to fire at point-blank range. This is bad, Heejin said, watching 5 Kreth cruisers closing in. We're about to take fire from all directions. Rotate the ship, Youngsu ordered. Give them a smaller target. And some and fire everything. All weapons, every direction. The Sentinel Warden became a spinning top, rotating on its axis while moving forward. Weapons fired in all directions simultaneously, creating a sphere of golden energy around the ship. It was pure chaos, impossible to calculate or predict. The Kreth ships tried to target them, but their perfect calculations couldn't account for this madness. Several of their shots hit each other instead of Sentinel Warden. The human ship's wildfiring actually hit 2 more cruisers, damaging their engines. It's working, Jiwoo shouted. They can't handle chaos. Shields at 30%, Yoonji warned. We can't keep this up forever. Taemin felt something change then. The ship hummed differently, deeper, more alive. The lights brightened. He looked at his displays and saw energy readings spiking in ways that made no sense. What's happening? Doyen asked. The resonance, Sentinel Warden said, and for the first time the AI's voice sounded almost excited. You are proving yourselves. Fighting without fear. Making choices that defy logic because you refuse to surrender. The ship is responding. I am responding. The shield suddenly surged back to 60%, then 70%. The weapons fired faster, hit harder. Even the engines accelerated beyond their supposed maximum. How is this possible? Hyunji asked, staring at her engineering displays in disbelief. The Valtorians built me to resonate with human will, Sentinel Warden explained. The more you demonstrate why they chose you, the more powerful I become. Show me more. Show me that human spirit. Youngsu understood. Kyungmin, stop playing it safe. Push this ship like you'd push your old fighter. Forget the limits. With pleasure, Kyungmin said. She pulled maneuvers that should have torn the ship apart, but Sentinel Warden held together and moved like it was meant to fly this way. Summon. Stop trying to be precise. Just unleash everything. Gladly. Soman fired with wild abandon, her shots no longer calculated but instinctive, and somehow they found their marks more often. The crew stopped trying to be perfect. They stopped worrying about making mistakes. They just fought with everything they had, refusing to give up even when logic said they should, and Sentinel Warden responded. The ship grew brighter, faster, stronger. New weapon systems came online that hadn't worked before. The shields became adaptive, changing frequency to better block Kreth weapons. The entire vessel seemed to come alive. Truly alive, for the first time in 800 years. One of the damaged Kreth cruisers tried to retreat. Kyungmin chased it down and Soman destroyed it with a sustained barrage. 2 down. Another cruiser attempted a coordinated attack with its companion. They moved in perfect synchronization, their shots timed to hit simultaneously. But Kyungmin didn't try to dodge logically. She just pushed the ship sideways at full power, a move that made no tactical sense, and both shots missed. Sentinel Warden's return fire crippled one cruiser and severely damaged the other. The remaining 3 Kreth ships finally broke formation. They were retreating, their perfect logic telling them the odds had turned against them. Don't let them escape, Youngsu ordered. If they report back what happened here, the Kreth will send a bigger fleet. The crew pushed harder. The chase went on for another 30 minutes of desperate combat. Sentinel Warden pursued the retreating enemies across the system. One by one, they were hunted down. The last Kreth cruiser made it to the edge of the system before Soman's final shot pierced its reactor. It exploded in a flash of dark energy that rippled across space. Then silence fell. The battle was over. For a long moment, nobody moved. They all just stared at their displays, unable to believe what had happened. Did we win? Jiwoo asked quietly. We won, Youngsu confirmed. 6 Kreth cruisers. All destroyed. The command center erupted in cheers. People were crying, laughing, hugging each other. They had faced an empire that had crushed countless civilizations, and they had won. Taemin felt tears on his face. They had survived. More than that, they had proved the Valtorians right. Humanity could stand against the Kreth. Well done, inheritors, Sentinel Warden said. You have taken your first step toward your destiny. But this was only a scout fleet. The Kreth will come again in greater numbers. What will you do? Youngsu looked around at his exhausted, battered, but unbroken crew. What humans always do. We'll fight. We'll adapt. We'll never surrender. Then I am honored to serve you, the AI replied. Outside the ship, the galaxy was watching. News of the battle had spread. Humanity had faced the Kreth Dominion and won. The news spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Within a week, every major species in the Galactic Council knew about Sentinel Warden. They knew that an ancient Valtorian warship had activated for humans. They knew about the beacon, and they were terrified. Representatives from 17 different species arrived on Verdara 9, demanding access to the ship. They brought scientists, military advisors, and diplomats. They set up camps around the jungle site, and suddenly the quiet research expedition had become the center of galactic attention. But Sentinel Warden refused to respond to any of them. The ship would only activate for humans. Only human hands could access its systems. Only human voices could communicate with its AI. The representatives were not happy about this. Taman stood in the diplomatic tent, watching the arguing representatives with exhaustion. He hadn't slept properly in days. None of the human team had. They were too busy learning about the ship, trying to understand systems that were far beyond current human technology. "This is unacceptable," said a representative from the Thalric species, his 3 eyes blinking in distress. "You humans have possessed this vessel for only days. You cannot possibly understand its power. You must allow our experts access." Doyen stood firm. "We've tried. The ship doesn't respond to your people. We can't change that." "Then you must surrender the ship to Council authority," another representative insisted. "It's too dangerous for one species to control." "The Valtorians didn't leave it for the Council," Doyen replied. "They left it for humanity. We're not giving it up." The argument continued, but Taman stopped listening. He slipped out of the tent and walked back toward the ship. Inside, things were quieter, though no less busy. The human team had grown to include specialists from Earth and the colonies. They were all working to understand their inheritance. Yunji was in the engine room, surrounded by holographic displays. She was a ship engineer, one of the best, and even she looked overwhelmed. "I've been studying these fusion cores for 3 days," she said when she saw Taman. "They're incredible. The power output is 10 times what our best ships can produce. But there's something else." "What do you mean?" Taman asked. Yunji pulled up a display showing energy readings. "The cores aren't running at full capacity. Not even close. It's like the ship is holding back. And these readings here, they don't match any power system I know. They fluctuate based on something I can't measure." "Have you asked Sentinel Warden about it?" "I did. It said the ship runs on 2 power sources. The fusion cores provide baseline power, but the second source is what it called resonance of will." "I have no idea what that means." Taman didn't either, but he filed the information away. There was so much to learn about this ship and so little time. He continued through the corridors until he found Youngsu in what they had identified as the command center. Youngsu was a military strategist, sent by Earth Defense Command to evaluate the ship's combat capabilities. He was a serious man, all business, and right now he looked both impressed and worried. "This ship is a monster," Youngsu said without greeting. "A beautiful, terrifying monster. The weapons systems alone could take on a fleet. The shields can adapt to different types of attacks, and the tactical computer is learning our combat doctrine, integrating it with Valtorian strategies." "That's good, isn't it?" Taman asked. "It would be if we had time to properly crew and train on this ship, but we don't. If the Kreth are coming, they could arrive any day." Taman felt a chill. "Do you think we can fight them?" Youngsu was quiet for a moment. "Honestly, I don't know. This ship is powerful, maybe powerful enough. But we're talking about an empire that has been conquering the galaxy for 10,000 years. They've destroyed species that were far more advanced than us. What chance do we really have?" Before Taman could answer, alarms started blaring throughout the ship. Sentinel Warden's voice echoed through the corridors. "Alert. Multiple vessels detected entering the system. Configuration matches Kreth Dominion designs. Estimate arrival at Verdera 9 in 6 hours." The command center exploded into activity. Youngsu was already pulling up tactical displays, analyzing the incoming ships. Taman felt his stomach drop. 6 hours. They had 6 hours before facing an enemy that had destroyed the Valtorians. Doyun burst into the command center, followed by half the team. "How many ships?" he demanded. 6, Youngsu replied. "Kreth scout cruisers according to Sentinel Warden's database. Each one is larger than any Council warship. Can we fight them?" Hijin asked. She had her weapon, though everyone knew it would be useless against starships. "This ship was designed to fight the Kreth," Youngsu said. "But we have a skeleton crew of 40 humans. Most of us are scientists, not soldiers. We've had less than 2 weeks to learn the systems. What are our other options?" Doyen asked. Youngsu's face was grim. "We could try to run. The ship's faster-than-light drive is functional. We could leave the system before they arrive." "And abandon everyone else here?" Jiwoo said. "All the other species, the researchers, everyone in orbit? We can't do that." "The Council is demanding we surrender the ship to them," Doyen said. "They think if we give it to the Kreth, they'll leave the system peacefully." Taman felt anger rise in his chest. "The Kreth don't make peace. Sentinel Warden showed us that. They destroy threats. If we surrender, they'll just destroy the ship and probably everyone who knows about it. The boy is correct, Sentinel Warden's voice said. The Kreth do not negotiate. They eliminate. If you surrender me, they will destroy me and then eliminate all witnesses to ensure knowledge of the Valtorian legacy does not spread. The room fell silent. Everyone was looking at each other, waiting for someone to make a decision. Finally, Young-Soo spoke. If we're going to fight, we need to start preparing now. We need every human on this ship at a station. Scientists will have to become operators. Researchers will have to become crew. We're not soldiers, Minji said quietly. No, Young-Soo agreed. But the Valtorians didn't choose us because we were soldiers. They chose us because we don't give up. So we won't. We'll crew this ship. We'll face the Kreth. And we'll show them why it was a mistake to come here. Taemin watched as people began moving, taking positions throughout the ship. Yoonji ran back to the engines. Minji went to communications. Heejin took a weapons station even though she had no training. Everyone found a place. He found himself at a secondary tactical station watching sensor displays he barely understood. Next to him, Jiwoo was shaking slightly, but her hands were steady on her controls. Sentinel Warden, Young-Soo called out. You said this ship responds to human determination. What did you mean? The Valtorians understood that will and spirit affect reality in ways that cannot be easily measured, the AI replied. They built me to resonate with that force. The more you prove yourselves worthy, the more you refuse to surrender, the more powerful I become. Show me the human spirit the Valtorians believed in, and I will show the Kreth why they should have stayed away. Over the next 6 hours, the crew worked frantically. Young-Soo coordinated with Sentinel Warden to develop tactics. Yoonji pushed the engines to be ready for combat maneuvering. Everyone learned their stations as best they could in the limited time. The Council ships in orbit began evacuating the system. One by one, they fled to faster-than-light speed, abandoning Verdara 9. Some sent messages condemning humanity for bringing this threat. Others simply ran without comment. Soon, only Sentinel Warden remained in orbit above the jungle world. They're entering the system now, Young-Soo announced. 6 Kreth cruisers just as predicted. On the main display, Taemin could see them. 6 dark ships, angular and wrong somehow, like they didn't belong in normal space. They moved with predatory grace toward Verdara 9. A message came through, broadcast in hundreds of languages simultaneously. The Kreth voice was cold and emotionless. Human vessel. Surrender the Valtorian technology immediately or be destroyed. You have 1 hour to comply. This is your only warning. Young-Soo looked around the command center at the scared but determined faces of the crew. Then he opened a channel. Kreth vessels, this is the Sentinel Warden. The Valtorians built this ship for humanity. They chose us to inherit their legacy. If you want it, come and take it. He closed the channel and smiled grimly. Well, no turning back now. Everyone to battle stations. Let's show these bastards what humans are made of. The Kreth response was immediate. All 6 ships accelerated toward them, weapons charging. The battle that would determine humanity's future was about to begin. Doyen stood at the entrance to the structure and shook his head in disbelief. He had been leading expeditions for 20 years, had seen dozens of alien ruins, but nothing like this. Behind him, a small team of researchers waited with their equipment, ready to begin proper documentation. You're absolutely sure it only responds to humans? Doyen asked for the 3rd time. Completely sure, Jiwoo answered. We tested it with everyone in the initial team. Only the humans activate it. The moment Taemin or any other human gets close, the systems turn on. When they leave, everything shuts down again. It had been 2 days since Taemin found the structure. In that time, camp had transformed into something much bigger. More scientists arrived. Security teams set up a perimeter. And most importantly, Minji came. She was the best linguist and cryptographer the expedition could get. If anyone could decode the alien symbols covering the ship's interior, it was her. Taemin led the group inside, and as always, the ship came alive around him. The blue lights flickered on. The hum of power filled the corridors. It felt like the ship was breathing, waking from a very long sleep. They had explored only a small section so far. The ship was enormous, with corridors that branched in all directions, rooms filled with equipment they didn't understand, and chambers that seemed to serve no clear purpose. Every surface was covered in those glowing symbols. Minji moved from wall to wall with her translation device, recording everything. She had been working non-stop since she arrived, barely sleeping. Her eyes were red from exhaustion, but she refused to rest. "This language is incredibly complex," Minji said, running her hand over a panel of symbols. "But I'm starting to see patterns. These symbols here, they repeat throughout the ship. I think they're important." "What do they say?" Doyen asked. "I'm not completely sure yet, but I think they're talking about inheritance, about something being passed down. And there are repeated references to waiting." They moved deeper into the ship. The further Taman went, the more systems activated. Gravity generators hummed to life, making their steps feel more normal. Life support kicked in, replacing the stale air with something fresh. In one large room, holographic displays suddenly flickered into existence, showing star maps and data streams that scrolled too fast to read. Then they found it. The central chamber. It was a massive spherical room at the heart of the ship. The walls curved around them, covered entirely in symbols that glowed brighter than anywhere else. In the center of the room floated a crystal structure, perfectly geometric, pulsing with light. The moment Taman entered the room, the crystal pulsed brighter. A sound filled the chamber, not quite mechanical, not quite organic. And then a voice spoke. It came from everywhere at once, speaking in a language that hurt to hear, sounds that human throats could never make. Minji's translation device struggled, producing only fragments. "Wait, inheritors. The ones who—" The crystal pulsed again, and this time the voice changed. It spoke in Galactic Common, the trade language used by most spacefaring species. But the accent was strange, ancient, and the words came slowly as if the speaker was remembering how to talk. "Identification required," the voice said. "Species classification needed for protocol activation." Everyone looked at Taman. He cleared his throat. "I am human. We are humans." The crystal went completely still for a moment. Then it began to spin, faster and faster, and the voice returned with what sounded like excitement. "Human. Confirmed. Genetic markers match projected evolution. You are the inheritors. Protocol activated, welcome." "Inheritors of what?" Doyen asked, stepping forward. "What is this ship?" "I am Sentinel Warden," the voice replied. "Constructed by the Valtorian people in their final cycle. I have been waiting 837 of your years for humanity to reach the stars and find me." The holographic displays around the room changed. They showed images now, images of the Valtorians. They looked insect-like, with forearms and complex eyes, but they wore clothes and held tools. They built cities. They were clearly intelligent, clearly people. "The Valtorians are extinct," Minji said softly. "We've studied their ruins across dozens of worlds." "What happened to them?" The images changed again. Now they showed war. Fleets of ships battling across space. Planets burning. Cities reduced to ash. And attacking them. A species that looked almost mechanical, with smooth metallic bodies and no visible faces. "The Kreth Dominion," Sentinel Warden said. "They have ruled through fear for 10,000 years. They find species that develop space travel and they destroy them. They allow no competition, no threats to their power. The Valtorians fought them and lost. But why build this ship for humans?" Taman asked. "How did you even know about us?" "In the final days, the Valtorians searched desperately for hope," Sentinel Warden explained. "They searched for a species that could survive what they could not. They found your radio signals, primitive but telling. They studied your history, your wars, your struggles, and they found something unique. The displays showed Earth now, old Earth from centuries ago. They showed wars and disasters, showed humanity facing extinction events and surviving, showed humans in impossible situations refusing to give up. Humans do not surrender," Sentinel Warden said. "You adapt. You endure. You fight even when logic says you should stop." The Valtorians calculated thousands of scenarios. In every simulation where the Kreth could be defeated, humanity was present. Not because you were stronger or smarter, but because you never accepted defeat. Hijin laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "So, you're telling us that a species we never met built a warship for us because they thought we were too stubborn to know when to quit?" "Yes," Sentinel Warden replied simply. "And I am not the only one. The Valtorians built 12 ships like me, hidden across the galaxy, each one waiting for humanity to find them. Each one designed to bond with human crews. Together, you are meant to be the shield that protects the galaxy from the Kreth." The room fell silent. Everyone was trying to process what they had just heard. Finally, Doyen spoke. "The Kreth Dominion is real?" They're not just myths from ancient history. They are very real, Sentinel Warden said. They are patient. They wait centuries between purges. They are due to expand into this region of space within the next decade. Jiwoo grabbed Taemin's arm. We need to tell the Galactic Council. If what this AI is saying is true, everyone is in danger. There's something else, Minji said. She was staring at a section of symbols she had just translated. These symbols here, they talk about a beacon. The ship has a beacon that activates when it wakes up fully. What does the beacon do? Doyen asked. Minji's face was pale. It sends a signal across the galaxy. It's supposed to tell any surviving Valtorian allies that humanity has arrived, that the inheritors are ready. But the Valtorians don't have any allies left, Taemin said slowly. They all died centuries ago. Exactly, Minji whispered. Which means the only ones who might hear that signal are the Kreth. Sentinel Warden's crystal pulsed. The beacon activated 3 days ago when the human first entered me. The signal has already been sent. Nobody spoke. They all understood what that meant. Somewhere out in space, the Kreth Dominion now knew that humans had found a Valtorian warship. They knew that the species the Valtorians chose as inheritors had finally reached the stars. And if the Kreth were as dangerous as Sentinel Warden claimed, they would come to investigate. They would come to destroy this threat before it could grow. Taemin looked at the holographic display showing Earth, his home world, so far away. The Valtorians had given humanity an incredible gift, a weapon designed to fight an empire, but they had also painted a target on humanity's back. The question was, could humans live up to what the Valtorians believed about them? Could they really stand against an enemy that had crushed every species that challenged them for 10,000 years? Looking around at his friends and colleagues, Taemin saw fear in their eyes. But he also saw determination. He saw people who wouldn't run from this responsibility, no matter how terrifying it was. Maybe the Valtorians had chosen correctly after all. The jungle was thick and wet, just like it had been every day for the past 3 months. Taemin wiped the sweat from his forehead and pushed another branch out of his way. His boots sank slightly into the soft ground with each step. Behind him, Jiwoo struggled with her equipment scanner, cursing softly when it beeped for the 3rd time. This thing keeps picking up metal signatures. But there's nothing here, Jiwoo said, tapping the device with her finger. Just more trees and rocks. Taemin stopped and looked back at her. Maybe your scanner is broken. We've been out here for hours and found nothing useful. It's not broken, Jiwoo insisted. There's definitely something in this direction. Something big. Hyejin walked past both of them, her hand resting on the weapon at her hip. She was their security officer, and she took her job seriously. The planet Verdara 9 was supposed to be safe, but that didn't mean they should be careless. If we don't find anything in the next hour, we're heading back to camp. It's going to get dark soon. The 3 of them had been part of the expedition team studying the ancient Valtorian ruins scattered across this jungle world. The Valtorians were an alien race that disappeared over 800 years ago. Nobody knew what happened to them. They just vanished, leaving behind only broken buildings and dead technology. Most of what the team found couldn't even be turned on anymore. Taemin was a xenoarchaeologist, someone who studied ancient alien civilizations. He loved this work, loved piecing together mysteries from long ago. But 3 months of finding only broken fragments was starting to wear on him. He wanted to discover something important, something that would matter. Wait, Jiwoo said suddenly. She stopped walking and stared at her scanner. The signal just got much stronger. It's right ahead of us. They moved forward more carefully now. Hyejin went first, pushing through the thick vines and massive leaves. Then she stopped so suddenly that Taemin almost walked into her back. What is that? Hyejin whispered. Taemin looked past her and felt his breath catch in his throat. Through the gaps in the jungle, he could see something that didn't belong. It was a structure, massive and covered in centuries of plant growth. Vines as thick as his arm wrapped around its surface. Trees grew from its top. But underneath all that green life, he could see the shape of something manufactured, something built with purpose. It looked like a ship. A ship the size of several city blocks. How did we miss this? Jiwoo asked, her voice full of wonder. How did the satellite scans miss this? The jungle is too thick, Hyejin said. And it's been here so long that it looks like part of the landscape. Taemin started walking toward the structure. He couldn't help himself. This was the kind of discovery that people dreamed about. His heart was beating fast in his chest. Taemin, wait, Hyejin called out. We should scan it first, make sure it's safe. but Taman was already getting closer. He stepped over a fallen log and ducked under a low-hanging branch. The structure loomed above him now, blocking out the sky. He reached out to touch the surface to feel if it was metal or stone or something else entirely. Then everything changed. A deep hum filled the air, so low that Taman felt it in his bones rather than heard it. Lights flickered to life beneath the vines, glowing a soft blue color. The ground beneath his feet began to vibrate. Somewhere in the structure, something mechanical groaned and shifted, the sound of machinery that hadn't moved in centuries. Panels hidden under the vegetation slid open with a hiss of releasing air. A blast of wind hit Taman's face, carrying a smell of metal and ozone. He stumbled backward in surprise. "Taman, get away from it," Hyajin shouted. She had her weapon drawn now, though what good it would do against a structure this size, Taman had no idea. He backed away several steps. The moment he did, the lights began to dim. The humming sound faded. The panels slid closed again. Within seconds, everything was quiet, as if nothing had happened at all. The three of them stood in silence, staring at the structure. "Did you see that?" Jiwoo finally said. "It turned on. You got close and it turned on." "Try it again," Hyejin said. She hadn't put her weapon away yet. Taman approached the structure again, more slowly this time. When he got within about 50 meters, the lights flickered on again. The humming returned. More panels opened, revealing dark spaces inside the structure. He stepped back. Everything went dormant. "It's reacting to you," Jiwoo said. She was already recording everything on her personal device, specifically to you getting close. "Maybe it reacts to any person," Taman suggested. "Let me try," Hyejin said. She walked toward the structure, her steps careful and measured. She got to where Taman had been standing. Then she kept going, getting even closer. Nothing happened. The structure stayed dark and quiet. Jiwoo tried next. Same result, nothing. "It only reacts to you, Taman," Jiwoo said. "But why? Why would an alien structure that's been dead for centuries suddenly turn on, just because you got near it?" Taman shook his head. He had no answer. This didn't make sense. The Valtorians died out hundreds of years before humans even left Earth. There was no way they could have known about humanity, let alone built something that specifically responded to humans. Unless they did know. Unless they planned for this. "We need to report this to Doyun," Hyejin said. Doyun was their expedition leader back at the main camp. "This is bigger than anything we can handle on our own." "Wait," Taman said. "Let me try something first." He walked toward the structure again. This time he kept going even when the lights turned on. He walked right up to one of the open panels and looked inside. There was a corridor there, dark except for the blue lights that lined the floor. The air coming from inside was cool and dry, completely different from the humid jungle air. "Taman, don't," Jiwoo warned. But Taman had already made his decision. He stepped through the opening and into the structure. Behind him he heard Hyejin curse and both of his friends rush forward. Inside more lights came on. A lot more. The corridor lit up, revealing walls made of some smooth material that looked like metal, but felt warm to the touch. Symbols he didn't recognize covered the surfaces, glowing softly. He could hear more sounds now, deeper in the structure. The sound of systems waking up, coming back to life. This wasn't just a dead alien ruin. This was a ship. A ship that had been waiting. Waiting for someone. Waiting for him, or more accurately, waiting for a human.